Dan talked to me this morning, and I told him we were still on.
So it's Dan.
Oh, he was here for policy. Yeah, where did he go? He was here. Oh, we're on the air. Yeah, go ahead. Let's go, yeah.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 18th workshop on budget this evening.
So, welcome everyone. And I know we have an hour, and probably a lot of this might be work time too, because we got to talk about where we're going. So, part of Karen and I are working with the city manager and the mayor and so forth about next Monday's joint workshop. So by the time we're at the end of the hour, I need direction on what we're going to bring forward to the city council on Monday. And Karen, I'll share with you how that meeting may run, because we had preliminary discussions today. Oh, I said we weren't going to use those tonight. Sorry, did somebody tell you to go get them? Oh, if they want them out, then go ahead.
No, I just asked where they were, and she thought
No, if
upstairs.
you want to put them on, I just thought your hands would be on them, then their hands are on them, and then your hands are on them.
Right about the hands.
Everybody's
All
hands.
kinds of hands.
Like, see, yeah, that's what I felt bad.
Hey, I got my stairs and my steps in, it's all good.
And there's hand sanitizer up all
Who
around.
asked me about?
Tiniest bottle ever of hand
Oh,
sanitizer. And then girl asked me and I said, it's like this big. It's like 2 drops.
That was the last
But
of it.
Michelle was being good. She was listening to Karen, and she's supposed to follow Karen. That's good. She was being good. Oh, good. They're right here. Good.
All right. Hi, Rose. Hi, Dan.
There's 2 seats right over here.
So you have a few choices. You have one there, or one there.
Yeah, go
Completely
here
up to you.
and Rose, if you want.
Hide over the corner.
Okay.
10-foot table for you.
Hi, Rose. All right, so we just started.
Okay, so Karen and I will kind of explain to you what is going to happen at the joint meeting as we figure out how we're going to run meetings. Okay. But part of our job today is start thinking about what we're bringing forward to the city council that we can stand behind. So right now, new people, it's the superintendent's budget until you approve the budget. And then it becomes your budget. So right now it's the superintendent's budget, and you're giving feedback on that budget and then we'll get feedback from everybody else as we go through this process. That's what we're going to do, and then we'll update on even budget process at this point with everything going on. So we're going to go over the total budget. I'm going to go over that one more time, and then Adam's going to go through the revenue so that you know where that is. And we also wanted you to know, so that you can stand by perhaps some decisions, what the per pupil expenditures are for the city of Auburn over other districts. So you have kind of like, okay, if we're going to have an increase, can we make some arguments? So that's part of our job too. So just to remind you that we went over all these cost centers. You have all your materials. So if we do have time later for you to kind of do some work, we can do that. But our budget right now is at $48,306,471, which is an increase of $2,969,033, which is about a 6% increase, which we're going to go over that when we go over revenue. So some of the things that are driving our expenditures are, what is it going to take if we took what we do right now and we move it forward into FY21? And that would take $1,667,407. And it also includes moving some of those grant positions that can no longer be sustained by grants, because what happens is the grants are set, especially the title grants. The title grants they don't change because you have an increase in free and reduced. People usually think, oh, well, we have more economically disadvantaged students, so we should have an increase in title. The title grants are set by your community's economic status, which is driven by the census. So as people fill out the census, that's why we push people to fill out censuses, because since the last time Auburn had their census, that's going to shift, right? Because our community's shifted, and that may shift our title dollars. But they stay pretty stagnant. If anything, they've come down a little bit, but they're stagnant. It's based on a lot of factors. So there's some key positions that I shared with you that have to move into the general fund in order to be sustained. So that's included in that existing position, because we don't want to lose a position. So the way to save it is put in the general fund. And then we have new positions at $514,304. That included those intervention positions, the Ed Tech 2 positions for high class sizes. That was for a secretary for Sherwood Heights. And so we can review those, which are in your other PowerPoints. And then we have to have really a conversation of where you want the special ed tuition service, special ed seed money to land. Because right now, it was budgeted 82% of our students that we pay tuition for their attendance. So last year, Ryan did his averaging, and he was looking at, and he said, well, we could go with 82% of our attendance. And as you know, we always end in the red, right? And so how we cover that red is when we have leftover expenditure dollars from the other cost centers. And so the school committee approved to cover that deficit with those other cost center dollars, and then we're fine. And pretty much a lot of districts have to cover different cost centers because you're making a budget now and you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Like, who would have known we would be sitting like this tonight? So it's now budgeted at 90% attendance rate, which we should be doing, okay? Looking at our average from last year, going into this year's number, we're projected that we should be doing 90%, probably higher, if Brian had his way.
Should be budgeting 90 because that's where we're trending.
Exactly.
I mean, really, we should budget a little more if
Right.
she's talking about sound budgeting, but it's in at 90 because that's where we're trending.
Right. And it's a major increase. So to go from 82% to 90%, plus the increase, I think he had a couple of increased tuition students, would increase $773,384, plus the seed money that we must do in correspondence with that. So it's $124,678. So we're increasing the number of days we're putting kids in attendance, so you need to increase the seed money according to those number of days. That is close to $900,000 right there, just an increase in our special ed. So we may decide, well, you may direct me and say, Katie, let's fund it at 85%. So we want you to reduce that number to get us and go, we're going to go up, but we're not going to meet where you want us, which is 90%, knowing that next year Adam's going to have to watch the projections to make sure that we're covering, just like in your finance meetings, Brian sees. He knows where we are with our special ed dollars, and so we're keeping track. Are we able to cover that deficit? So I'm going to turn my phone off so I don't have to hear it beeping. I'm guessing Michelle will get some of it, so if it's an emergency, I'll take it. So that's something we have to decide. Are we going to ramp up to 90, or are we going to ramp up a little at a time? The good news is we did have a savings in all the other accounts, right? So if you look at other cost centers and other variables in our budget, we had saving of $110,740. So and then I've already told you the total increase, which is at 6.55%. So part of our discussion is going to have to be what are we going to do to make some adjustments? Because I can tell you we're at a 13% increase to the local. And I'm going to ask Adam to share the revenue sheet with you and probably get off. I'll get off and you project. Or do you want me to project? I can keep projecting while you talk. And so you can see, because we did not get a significant increase in state subsidy, this is the year we're asking for an increase in local taxes, which we haven't had in 2 years. Okay? So while he's passing out, I'm going to switch to that document for you. We all set? So this is the document you're looking at, and then Adam's going to take us through the different revenue sources. He's going to talk about fund balance, what we did there to make an adjustment, and then the overall impact to the mill rate, and then we need to make decisions on where we feel comfortable bringing the budget in.
Okay, so the multicolored sheet is the revenue summary. Those of you who are here will remember that this was the same format that we used last year with the different colors coding to try to make it a little more digestible, but I'll just walk you through from the top. So, and I apologize, it looks like the left side got cut off a little bit, but I think you've got all the numbers. So the top is our state subsidy, and
So I'll do the arrow too while he
Great,
talks.
perfect.
Okay, yeah.
the top is our state subsidy, and you can see the, well, I'll start with the second line. That's our debt service, and that's the state funding of the Park Avenue School. So that decreases a little bit every year as the payments decrease. So that first line is our regular subsidy, and you can see it's up only $387,000. And so altogether, the subsidy is up $365,000, which is an increase of 1.41%. As you know, or as you may know, the last couple of years, our subsidy was up well over $1 million each year. So this is a significant, it's not a decrease, but effectively it is a decrease. It's such a small increase. And that's based on really a triple whammy of the state's valuation number for Auburn went up, our enrollment's down, and our special ed enrollment's down from last year's numbers that were used to calculate subsidy. So that's all playing into this. Then we get to the local piece, and the top number, the $16,272,000, that is the minimum amount that we are required to raise locally to ensure that we get all of our state subsidy. So we have to raise that amount to get all of our subsidy. You can see the last 2 years that amount has gone down because the state has been providing more on a proportional basis across the entire state of Maine. So the way they calculate it, our minimum required has gone down, which makes it look like our additional is more. The local only debt service, those are for major capital projects that we pay for through borrowing, and that's only new buildings or additions to buildings. So of all the money we've borrowed in the last 10 years, $102,000 of that goes toward payments for major capital, and that gets broken out into its own category. And then the additional local is everything else that we would need to raise to meet our budget, because that's the $3.8 million. So that brings us to a total local of $20.1 million, which is an increase of $2,460,000 or 13.9%. That's the big number right there.
I just asked a question.
Absolutely.
Sure. Microphone.
Or talk really loud.
Somewhat.
And don't touch
Well, I
the
can
big-
talk loud, so
gonna
if
say.
that's the option. Hold on, where was I? I'm sorry. In 2018, there was 0 for the additional local, and then there was 980,000 in 2018, 2019, et cetera, and now it's up to 3 million. That seems like a pretty steep increase.
So let me explain what happened between 18 and 19. We learned that not all debt service should be under the additional local. Under the local only debt service. We were putting all of our debt service in that line. And so 2 years ago, we made the adjustment to correct that. So you'll see that the local only debt service dropped from 1.8 million to $44,000. And that's also the first time you saw any additional local. Up till that point, we were we weren't raising additional local the way we were calculating it. So 2 years ago, when we came to the school committee and city council, we went through this whole discussion of this is an adjustment to be correct in how we're accounting for our funds. In reality, there should have been some additional local listed, and so we made that correction 2 years ago.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Then we go to all other, which is, as you can see, a very small amount, but it is all those other pots of money that we have to go toward our general fund budget. In most of those, there's not much change. State agency client reimbursement, special ed SOS tuition at our regional program. Maine care reimbursement I'm budgeting pretty much flat based on what we're seeing this year. Secondary tuition, that's our Franklin tuition that we get from Lewiston, and as we've discussed, they have fewer students enrolled. They had been paying for 17. I'm budgeting for 13 based on current.
And they're opening their own alternative school. So we're hoping they'll keep kids there that have been there, but they are opening their own.
When are they opening it? Do you know?
Well, I think they're in the planning process. They already have a type of program, but from what I understand, they want to hire like a director. Yeah, that would be at the multi-purpose Longley School. Yeah.
And then, so what's going to happen with our kids?
Well, that's,
students.
we
Or
have
our
our
students.
children. Yeah, this is their Lewiston students.
Okay, but we're sending students to Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's our
So
program.
it's our, the whole thing becomes ours versus Lewiston sending students and paying us.
Correct.
We no
Okay.
longer have that income.
Thank you.
Big change last year was that they used to pay for like say 15 spots, even if they only had 7 kids, and then this year they paid per person, per pupil, so that made a huge
They
impact
used
on
to
our
pay for
budget.
17,
Yeah.
and they're currently at 13.
So technically, we're making more money per student per slot or whatever.
No, we're making less
It's
money.
the same
We
cost
charge
of the slot.
we
Okay.
charge the state tuition rate, so every year the state sets what our tuition rate is,
Uh-huh.
and you only ever use that if you have kids coming into your district and charging tuition. So that is set by the state, and that's what we charge Lewiston. Rental properties, that's what we get from the regional, the RETC program for renting the building at Lake Street. 50,000 is what we get from daycare for operating costs for use of our buildings. Then you'll see a new category. I don't know if we've mentioned it here. We've discussed it in Finance Committee that mostly at the high school receives gate receipts for athletic events. Those have always stayed in the school's athletic activity funds and been spent from there. Because of changes in auditing standards, we have to move those into the general fund budget. We've started doing that this year, and so next year's budget reflects, as we discussed a little bit last week, some new expenditures that used to come out of there. Those are now in the budget, and we've budgeted $32,000 for gate receipt revenue. It's really a wash, essentially, in terms of what it does to the local. It just has all shifted into the budget rather than being in the activity funds at the high school.
Now-
That's something that every district is, if they didn't already have their gate receipts in the general fund, all districts are going to have to move that.
For in the auditing purpose, is this something that we need to be concerned about going forward? Because, it takes the person, an extra week to deposit the money, and then ratifying it at the end becomes very volatile, right? You know what I mean?
No, I don't think I'm sure what you're getting at.
She's
but
talking about, remember when we got called,
in terms of how long it takes to deposit the funds.
correct, and we got a red flag.
Funds
on
are
it.
still going through the high school.
Okay.
So really nothing will change on the deposit schedule other than obviously our work to make that more timely. But it wouldn't really have any budget impact.
Okay, that's just my concern.
Yep. And then miscellaneous is miscellaneous. I did bump that up because similar to the gate receipts, miscellaneous funds that used to come into the schools and they would maintain there in their activity funds also now have to flow through the general fund. So, if Pepsi gives the school $1,000, that's now coming into the budget and being spent from the budget. So just based on an estimate of what we're seeing and might see next year, I bumped that up by $20,000. And we told principals to account for anything like that in their building budgets that they presented to us. So all in all, that's up by $1,700, the other. And that brings us to fund balance. We had worked the last 2 years to bring down our use of that a little bit. We'd been using about $900,000. And just knowing how this budget was looking, I put in $1 million. I felt that was probably going to be something we needed to do. Obviously, we can discuss that. So that puts the total general fund up 6.5%. Under that, we have adult ed, which is its own budget. It's obviously very small compared to the general fund. Their state subsidy is up 4%. And we continue to budget the same amount of tuition that we always do. The program budgets for full, if they ran every class they possibly could, they budget for the full expense of that and the full tuition that we'd receive. But so that allows us to do it if we're able to do it. But if it doesn't happen, obviously we're not spending that money. So we've been maintaining that number for a while. So the change here is on the local, which is up 7.6%. And you'll see last year was the first time we started breaking out the use of fund balance between general fund and adult ed. And in talking with our director, sort of artificially holding adult ed flat on the local is not the best strategy. So I'm not applying any fund balance to adult ed, which it really has no effect. It's how we divvy it up between general fund and adult ed. Their fund balance is essentially pooled as one number in the audit. So letting that rise, letting the local and the adult ed rise, and just plugging the fund balance into the general fund. So I don't know if that made sense, but essentially raising more locally on adult ed helps us with our subsidy for adult ed. It doesn't work that way in the general fund. So it's to our interest to not artificially hold that down.
Is there going to be any savings because of the partnership that we have with Lewiston Adult Ed that we're correct? Is that what we're doing, or?
Been doing that for several years, so those
Okay.
savings are already reflected
Okay.
in the budget.
Because we had him come and talk the other day.
Mhm. Yeah, we pay 35% of the director's cost. So looking at the grand total, we're up 13.83% on the local, which is $2,475,000. Looking at the mill rate, which is how much a homeowner spends per $1,000 of assessed value on their home, that's going from $9.15 to $10.41. It's an increase of $126, or on a $150,000 home, an increase of $190 as the budget stands right now. Any questions on how that was put together or how any of that works?
Okay, yeah. All right. And then we had one other handout, which is, you have, right, Adam, about per pupil costs?
Yeah, I handed it out. I don't have it ready to display, but
that's okay.
so the per pupil operating costs by district, that's a number that the Maine Department of Ed puts together. So these are not numbers that the districts are
Define these.
calculating.
Yep.
These are on the website. Unfortunately, the 18-19 costs aren't available yet. I asked them last week. They said they're still working on it because it all depends on how soon they have 100% of the district's data from last year. So the most recent numbers were for 17-18. So we just wanted to provide some perspective in case people are wondering, where does our per pupil spending line up with other districts? And so we've sort of taken some districts that are similar to us in terms of size, and I believe these are the ones we've used over the years in doing comparisons like this. And so this will give you some idea of how Auburn lines up. The state average is $12,947. We were at $10,030, and you can see how that compares to other districts similar in size to us.
What's SAD 17?
So just for comparison, what is a town like Cape Elizabeth at? Do you guys know, per pupil?
I can actually pull it up. I've got the whole spreadsheet on mine.
And
I think you'll find it's higher,
And
but
remember,
let me-
Cape Elizabeth is a low receiver of state subsidy. So.
Right, but I know
Right.
we've had a lot of
Oh, yeah.
conversation around test scores and everything. I was just curious to.
Like Falmouth, you could add.
And
That's
Falmouth,
what I often
right.
hear, Falmouth.
So I was just curious what their per pupil cost was.
Yeah, I'll have it in a second.
I mean, I can look it up at home, but I just.
No, I mean.
I know
it's
there's
on-
been a lot of
it's right on the
discussion.
website.
Cape Elizabeth is 14,612.
Right.
Falmouth is 14,109. So obviously they're well above the
Well
state
above.
average.
Okay. I think it's important to
Mhm.
point that out.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Is there a way to decipher, and I don't even know if this makes sense, but the per pupil cost of the taxpayer, so what the actual taxpayers are paying per pupil, for like us versus Lewiston?
So this is mostly on expenditures,
Okay,
not revenue. So it's not, the revenue is the expenditures that were spent
Yeah.
by the district.
What I would,
So it'd be hard to,
But I
but
would-
what you could do is look at their mill rates and see what percentage do
Right.
they put towards education.
and what I'd caution on that too is every year, districts budget a different amount of fund balance. And
Exactly.
so that can cause wild changes in the local, even if the expenditure goes up quite a bit. If you use more fund balance, then the local might not go up as much. So you can make those comparisons, but you just would have to have a lot of context for something like that. This is a straight, how much are you spending, divided by your student population.
Do you know what our spending is? Like, you may not know, the state hasn't come out with this, but do you know how much we've spent last year and the year before?
I haven't done my own calculation on it. I could do one for 18-19 and get that number for you. It's not a simple how much did we spend divided by the pupils. There are some things they take out, I think, as debt service and maybe transportation. But I can do that and get that for you.
that would be interesting that they don't put transportation in there, because transportation is definitely something that you spend specifically on students. And one district might spend more on transporting kids because it's a further distance, and
we
the
are.
other,
We're big.
like,
And that might be why they don't,
okay,
honestly.
I guess.
I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why.
Interesting.
And the debt service, they exclude because it's a fixed cost that previous voters approved. So and obviously that can vary wildly. If you have one project from 8 years ago, that's in your budget. So they pull that out to try to make it more apples to apples.
So some of your challenge is going to be, where do you want to bring the budget in? Now, what we've done, and Karen and I have talked about this, is you're going to go to city council, we're going to go to city council on Monday. We can show them all of this and say, this is where we're at. We can say, we know that we need to bring it down. We've directed the superintendent for next Wednesday's meeting to see what $1 million would look like. If we asked you to reduce $1 million, where would your priorities be looking at the budget? This is what we've done in the past. It can change. But we work on it with our administrative team. We list things, we talk about them, and then you all can say, which we've done this with a spreadsheet, and we say, okay, you're thinking of this. We put that number in, or we see your list, we like your top 5, but we'd like to move your 9 to 6, whatever it is. Or I was hoping to see this, and we can plug things in, and we can go back and forth. I always feel, it should start with what we're seeing as the highest priorities from the district viewpoint, what you all are seeing as your priorities, and then we start calculating. Now, I picked $1 million only because, okay, you want to try to cut it maybe in half, or at least take a portion of this off. if we're looking at for the local, it's 2.4 million if we were going to reduce it and try to bring it at 1.4 million. What would it look like? Because it's hard to picture it because you have to think to yourself, how much is an average position, salary and benefits? You're never going to get there nickel and diming through the budget, right? You're never going to, take 500 there, take 300 there. You won't get there. You might get to 10,000, you might get to 20, but you're never going to get to 1 million. 1 million is positions, and it might be some of the new positions, but it might be, we say, a bigger priority for us is this, and we would put this on the priority list. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of talking through what would we put on there. If you asked us to look through that, what would you put on your priority list? And we would bring that next Wednesday. You all could be doing homework and saying, okay, what would I do to get to the million? And then we kind of compare, and we can create, this tab, and tell the city council what we're shooting for is trying to see what it would look like. Because we're not sure what the total impact is. You already know, because looking at this, you already know to maintain current is 1.6 million. You already know that. So are you shooting for 1.6 million and letting us maybe play with some of that new and our current positions? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, it's 1.6. What would you do with the new positions in your existing position to make adjustments to stay at the 1.6? Do you want us to look at special ed tuition and special ed seat and come off the 90% attendance rate? I mean, these are the drivers right here. So you're either cutting positions, we're reducing special ed. That's basically where we are. So I don't know if each person wants to kind of say where they're feeling, what they're thinking. And it's hard to say. Believe me, I hate to say it, and you hate to say something, people say, God, did they just say they're going to cut the librarians, or whatever it is, or they're going to close East Auburn. Oh my God, you know what I mean? And I get it. It's hard to say, but you could say this is what I would like you to start with, and we don't talk about positions and all that until we start to formulate. What are you thinking, Brian?
I'm gonna let everybody else go first. I have the advantage of having the council on it.
Right.
So I have an idea of what the council is looking at, but I want to hear what they have to say so that I can offer constructive advice or feedback or whatever it is.
I was going to say just the opposite. I almost want to know what the council's thinking first and compare it to what.
Well, we know what the council's thinking.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I'm.
As far as like bottom line, like the percentage of increase.
Throw that out there, but if the council is thinking what you have this year plus contractual raises.
So the 1.6?
The
are you
1.6,
thinking?
yeah.
The 1.6.
But in that gets back to where we can start moving things around, because Adam has done a fantastic job of tracking stuff for the budget, and I think that there's ways we can move stuff around and get money where we need it. That we've had surplus in some areas, but I think we can take that surplus and move it to areas where the rest of us think we need to get the money to. But it's going to be very hard selling this
Yeah.
at all with the fact that we've already given another increase with the new school, which I understand is further down the road. They're going to look at the end result.
Right.
And let's face it, we all have to consider that. We are basically in the middle. We have a very old population. For the most part, we do have new people moving in, but right now it's served by an older residential area. And there's going to be a lot of pushback on this, that these people cannot afford this kind of an increase. With what we approved for the school in the next 3 years, and this increase, taxes are going to go up by $350 a year. And that will push it way past what somebody living on Social Security.
So,
But
oh,
I do,
We're hearing that people can't hear you.
you have to,
sorry, I thought my mouth was loud enough.
I know,
so,
I know.
Brian, so what is your feeling about special education?
Which Brian?
Oh, this Brian. No, I'm just saying, if the city council's saying, let's say, just for talking point, that they're looking at the existing position with the salary and benefit increase, let's say that, and it's 1.6 million, how would you, from your perspective, and you don't have to own, I mean, everyone's going to say stuff tonight that could change within a week or so. How would you think about the 900,000 increase to special ed?
Well, I would definitely take a look at some of the categories, because I see in here where, in the last year, we've spent $9,000 or $10,000
So
for
give an
certain items.
give an example.
Well, I'm looking at occupational therapy right now. There's legal, there's physical therapy, there's a couple of items where we're scheduling much higher raises, and I can understand that may be for possible students, but I'm looking at what we have now and then maybe shifting money as we have to from other areas to cover that. It is not going to get to $1 million by any way, shape, or form, but it's just one area that you're looking at where we could start backing off a little bit. And again, I think that we have money in the budget where we have saved and not spent, in the past, that I think that we can shuffle things around to cover some of the increases that we may have. I'm touching my nose, I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't touch your face, Brian.
I can't help it.
Yeah, you did with the back of your hand.
And I can use a large container can soap, but I think we're about out at this point. But I think that we can shuffle money around as we need to cover the areas that, without taking an increase of that size.
Okay.
Just to address the OTPT as an example, any increases in those lines would tie right in with they're part of that number. So that's based on our current student population. So those aren't, let's put in some more in case we need it. This is what we think it's going to cost for the kids that we have now. And just
That's for special ed students, the OTPT.
right, and that's
Yeah.
included in that 773. And just to make a point of how we put this budget together, as an example, under facilities, Billy Hunter and I spent many hours going through each line, and we cut a lot of those lines back as much as we felt that we could. If you look, custodial supplies would be one example. So, could we potentially move some things around? Yes. Do I feel there's large pockets that would offset a lot of positions? I don't believe that's in there.
Well, what you're going to do is roll the dice.
So
And
just
it
to
may
give
be,
you my
maybe the
perspective
year,
having put
well,
together.
you would have to roll the dice, that you can come out in the black at the end.
One thing we could do, and just to put this out there, because you'll hear it later when I do my CIP, we have 2 school buses in here, and those are state approved for reimbursement. We could take those out and move them into the CIP. We'd still be purchasing them, and we'd still get the reimbursement. Do I hate to do it? Yes, because once they're out, how do you ever get them back in your operating budget?
Right.
But we could do it. That would be about $170,000.
And
Same with the van that we requested, that could go into CIP.
What's the percentage decrease if you did that?
Not very much. But
Okay.
I can,
No,
if
but,
we
but,
move both
but-
buses in the
but-
van,
but
there's $200,000.
It can go on it can go on the list.
Right. So
It
we
will
could
be on the
still
list,
meet
let's
that
put it
need,
that
just
way.
in a different way.
If you said, cut 500,000, that would be on the list, because we've already talked about it. I mean, we knew there was potential for reduction, so we've already been talking about those possibilities, like reviewing special ed numbers. I know I told Karen, looking at special ed positions, do we raise caseloads and do some reducing there? We've talked to Ryan that that's a strong possibility. If we have to put a list together, those positions are going to go on there. So, I mean, we can look through and put our proposals, and then you can come and say, this is our proposals, and we'll go line by line. Because there's some things, we know it really well, and there's some things, yes, at face value, you might say, yeah, that might be an area, but you don't know the backstory, and that's our job to fill in the backstory. And then we can shift or not shift. So it's hard. We do it all the day, and I can see looking through and doing that too. So I hear you. Pam, what are you thinking? Oh, you have to bring your
Pull
mic.
you've got to pull. I know you don't want to, but they've got to hear us. Talk nice and loud.
Okay, yours
Yeah.
was the last to
Yep.
get off.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, nice and loud.
can you hear me now? Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, I think there's going to be needing some cuts, yes. Obviously, this isn't going to fly with our community. We have to think about the community that we live in, and I get that. And although I do think that, obviously education is the most important thing, and if we want people to move to our community, we need to make sure that we have good schools. I was also kind of, while you guys were talking, I was kind of looking a little bit at the budget here. With all of this that's going on with the COVID-19, we're out of school for at least four weeks, and then we will reevaluate. So some of
2 weeks.
Oh.
But you're right.
I'm out of work for 4 weeks.
I was
Sorry.
going to say, it's probably going to get to that, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Wow, did we just, no, back up.
I know. I'm out of work for 4 weeks, so I guess I'm just
I know,
kind of.
you've got that in your
So, yeah. But anyhow, some of those things like field trips and stuff like that we're going to be saving money on because we're not going to be doing them, obviously, right? Yeah, well, no.
Subs, gas and buses.
Yeah, subs and buses, and all those things are going to be cost savings. I mean, I know this is, a pandemic, and it's not, I'm trying to find the positive in this, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of negative.
Right.
But all those things, like, are we going to be looking into that, like, and then we can put that over to the next budget? I know that's not going to be a lot,
You
but.
cannot do that.
Yeah.
The
One,
only-
oh, I was
I
going
was
to say.
thinking about that,
Rose
and
left,
the
but
only
I'll
sense in
answer
which
that.
we could do it is use more fund balance.
Right.
If we felt,
Right. Let me go to
Okay.
that, let me go to that page so you have a little bit of look.
we felt okay between subs, gas, whatever, we're not gonna spend $200,000.
Right.
We could talk about, put the fund balance at 1.2. So you can't carry it over, but you would know it's in fund balance and you could use more of it.
Why can't you carry it over?
So each budget is tied to the fiscal year it was approved for.
Okay.
And once that year's over, it rolls into fund balance, it's gone.
Oh, okay.
And they won't let you designate it. Like, it wasn't designated for COVID-19, so you can't.
Right.
So that's what makes it tricky, is everything's designated to everything. Now, the fund balance, do you want to go over the fund balance, this page?
Yeah, I can go over that. And Rose, just to answer your question, I pulled 200,000 out and it dropped it from 13.83 to 12.71. So it was just over 1%.
Well, that's better than nothing.
There's a percent right there.
There you go.
To what?
So if we pulled those buses and the van out.
Right, the
And dropped to
$170,000.
$200,000, it would take the percentage increase from 13.83 to 12.71.
Okay.
So we're down a percent point.
So that gives you a sense of what does $200,000 do for us.
Okay.
Gives us about 1%.
I was, just wanted to add really quick to Pam, that although we are saving money technically from not busing and all of this stuff, I'm assuming that the other side of it is that we're spending a lot of money because we're spending money in cleaning supplies and other things that might not have been pulled, that those facility maintenance costs are just going to go in the red. Like, we're not going to be saving any money. We're going to overspend in one place, but we're going to save money in the other.
And another thing that I mentioned to Adam earlier today, that we have no idea on, and we're talking about the money that's coming from local, that money's going to be greatly reduced because all the mom and pops and the small businesses are
Right.
all
Those
closed.
are-
So tax revenue, unless, they've got a crystal ball that they're going to be able to come up with, tax revenue will be down because we're talking anywhere from a month to whenever this thing gets over with.
Yep. Yep.
So there's a
absolutely.
lot of variables right now, definitely, yeah.
Just keep hopping around, just do really quickly. So Dan, your thoughts on where we're at?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping for like 275, 2 3/4 to 3, but it looks like minimum at 3.5, 3. I guess I could live with that, but much more than that, I've talked to some other counselors too, and then I don't believe you have support for any more than that. I don't believe. I hate to say it, but it's,
Talking about
Yeah.
this percentage here,
no, in the top, up top.
the local
Let me,
percentage?
Let me
Yes.
change because you're showing the thing I just messed with. Let me undo that.
The one we were just on.
so you're talking about.
Total
Talking about the
percentage.
purple,
Yes.
you're talking about the local, not the overall, right?
Okay, not
Yeah, right, the purple, yes.
Local, yeah.
We're about.
Well, not the other one you were on, the,
6%, 6.5.
6.57?
the other screen you were on before?
That was the fund balance screen.
This one?
No, before that. Yeah, right there. See how you have 3.68%?
This one,
That's to maintain what we have right now, right?
yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's what I'm
So
looking at.
that's on the overall, but to maintain that, the local would be much higher than
Would be-
I was gonna say, we're not even
3.68.
close.
Would be this, that's what I was trying to show you, Dan.
Oh, okay, I
So
see.
see, local right here is at 13.83.
Yes.
So you want that between 2 and 3, you're saying, Dan?
Yeah, that's what I would shoot for, yeah. I mean, CPU,
10% decrease to
Yeah.
that number.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And so,
That's huge.
and so,
And I've been warning the city manager staff, that would be enormous to us. I mean, that would be
Oh, I know, yeah, and I didn't realize until I saw this. yeah.
devastating.
Yeah, yeah, it's,
But
but
to
I think
Pam's
there's
point,
pushback for that. I
If we
mean,
want to add to the fund balance,
Let's say
thinking
that's-
we'll have an increase in fund balance due to shutting
Unspent,
down, that, that would do,
So if we did do that, if we did add, like, let's say we did get, I don't know, $100,000, let's say we saved. I'm just using that as a number. And we put that in the fund balance, because that's the only place it can go. Can we lower the fund balance that we had projected and put that money into other things and reallocate that money?
No.
So that our fund budget will stay the same, but really, it will be, we're gonna use,
Swapping.
yeah, we're
I
gonna be
think
using.
we're getting at to the same thing,
Yeah,
Pam,
getting
which
the same
is,
thing.
we could use it to reduce the amount that we need to raise next year to have this budget.
see this number here, that 1 million? Ooh, sorry.
Right, we'd have
Oh,
to put
man,
that
you
to,
messed it up.
I know, but see that 1 million?
Yeah.
We would make that 1.2 million, for
that
example.
would decrease it by
Right,
12%.
then that would decrease this number.
That would be another 1%
It would be-
off.
Right, it would be another 1% off.
Okay, so that would be
So if
good.
we put the buses and increase the fund balance to
1.2,
1.2, then it would be down to 11.8.
So that would be good.
So let's.
So we
let's-
could allocate that,
Let's do this.
Those-
Let's make it an item that would go on the list. I'm making a list here. So for next Wednesday, no, but we're just, hey, any idea is a good idea at this point.
so
All
we-
right,
And
so,
those were the two things that, if you had said, what are the two easiest semi-big things we could do, those would have been the two things I would
right.
say tonight,
So
would be
you're
move the
okay with it?
vehicles and increase the fund balance.
would that hurt any other projects that you were coming up? Will that limit any other projects if you put that in?
All it does is,
CIP?
the more fund balance you
We
use, the
use.
less you have in the future.
No, by putting
Oh,
the
the
buses in the
CIP?
CIP.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, because typically,
would.
we're not given an amount to cover X number of projects, we're given an amount, and then we have to prioritize our list to fit that amount. So yes, Dan, and thank you for saying that, because I didn't mention that before.
But that's really where it should
You're in
be,
the-
though, in the CIP budget, right? Really? I mean, because it's,
I mean,
it's a capital,
to
it's
me, to me, where you have to buy multiple buses every year, to me, that should be in the operating budget, but
Right.
there's nothing to say it has to be done one way or the other. My fear is, once you move it out of the operating
Never getting it
budget into
back in.
CIP, how do you ever get it back in? But, and to your point, the other fear is it takes up $200,000 of money that we could have used on other projects that we've identified that we need to do.
Adam, can you do the calculation using the 1667407 increase?
That was
If
it
that
for
was
the
the it,
local. Yep.
yep.
we want to keep going
Yeah,
around.
keep going
Yeah,
around.
go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think, hello, there we go. Obviously, we, like you said, the 13.8 is too high. I think we talked last week, I definitely want to see a prioritized list. I think that's going to be helpful. I think the other thing is we've got to have a come to moment with the special ed. I think we're, at some point in time, it's gonna push us out of range. I mean, we're looking at exponential growth each year, and, maybe we've got to spend a little more invest somewhere to drop those costs. But, I think at this point, like I said, because they're exponentially growing, maybe we got to look at the 85% and kind of cut the middle, instead of going all the way to 90, instead of going all the way down to 82, maybe we go to 85 and see if we can kind of see where that puts us. But at the same time, I think that's again, because of the exponential growth each year, I think that's one of the areas where we just got to look at what is our long-term strategy around it, I think.
So first off, I just want to say that, I know Adam works incredibly hard and he's excellent at what he does. And so this number, although I know it's high and it will never be approved by city council, like I believe in this number and I know that the things here are needs and not wants. But the reality is that our community can't afford this increase. So I do think we need to look at the different lines on whether or not we have to move things out, increase the general fund, not the general fund, the fund balance, sorry. I hate to see us move the buses out because once we move them out, they'll never get back in. But I do think this will never be approved, so it would be smarter if we would just look at where we need to adjust it to get the number down closer to where we think it would be approved. That would be, so that we have some control over it after talking with administrators and stuff. So it's unfortunate because I know we need this, but the reality is we're not going to get that.
Can I ask a question of Adam? Since you were over there doing your numbers thing, and I'm terrible at it, I'm trying to put my hands out of my face.
Well, I have a spreadsheet that's doing the work for me, so.
He just plugs it in, Brian.
Numbers in.
I'm just looking at Cost Center 2 right now, and I'm looking at the cost over the last several years. 3 years ago, it was 9.8 and change. Then the 2 and 1 year prior to that, it was 10.3 and 10.5. If we ran, and this year currently, I guess, is at 6.32. If we drop that overall budget total, just not going into individual categories and trying to figure that out, if we dropped it back to 10.5, which was what it was a year ago revised, what would that do to the total?
Okay, just so you know, if Ryan Fairchild were here, he'd say you can't just arbitrarily change numbers in the special ed count. There's calculations done for that. So if he was flat funded, he can't be flat funded because everything in there is correct. The only thing you really can do is say, what percentage attendance rate do you want to calculate that off? The other thing you can do, which I told you, we can look at positions in that budget, and maybe we can get there with that.
Well, maybe this is back to a question to you.
So it might be position, looking at positions.
Because I heard somebody say it here that the enrollment was down, but I remember Ryan saying in the meeting that the enrollment, his projected enrollment was going to be up.
Yeah,
Yep.
because October 1 is the count,
Right.
and then,
And I believe we've gone up quite a few
Correct.
since that count, which is.
yeah, that's the problem.
It's unfortunate that moment in time is the snapshot that was used, and
Well, I
it
was
just
looking
didn't
at
work in
higher
our favor this time around.
Well, the other thing is the child service, remember he talked about CDS, Child Development Services? This year we had low numbers in that. That's your pre-K, right, coming into kindergarten. This year, we're up like almost double what we have been. And so that's part of what's feeding into the numbers for next year. He has more CDS kids coming in. I think he had maybe 4, I have his presentation, an increase in students. So that will help us the following year in subsidy because it's delayed for that. But he can definitely look at his budget. I mean, he and I already talked that his budget may be looked at for positions. And so he definitely can look that over for next week and what will be his priority in that cost center.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
When
I'll have him.
Ryan did a presentation, he also talks about how, we send our kids to various different places and we have to spend money to send them to these places. And I had talked to you, Adam, too, about like maybe doing a cost analysis on how much it would cost if we had our own facility, and that way we could make revenue and how that would work and if we can make money on that. Have you looked at any of that, or?
I have
know you're-
not had a chance to look at that, but I think even if we did, I don't, that wouldn't be in place for next year.
No, but
And
it's something that
we'll
we could
certainly
think
look
about
at that,
so that
yeah.
eventually, because like you said, Brian, it keeps, it keeps going up exponentially. So we may not be able to keep up with that. And if we had our own facility and we could actually bring in revenue as well, then maybe we could kind of catch up eventually. Maybe not this budget, but down the road, I don't know.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that and try and the big picture of what would it cost to obtain a building, staff it, to meet the needs we think we'll have, and then what could we remove from tuition, and what would that look like? We can definitely work on that. I haven't had a chance to start that yet.
So I think we're just going to kind of come to a few comments. I'll throw my comments in there in that I want to maintain existing positions. I would, my priority list is not to cut any existing positions right now. I think to justify a new position, it would really need to be held within, an increase if we're going to go, maintain plus 1 million, like it has to come from within that 1 million. I will push back on you just a little bit, Katie, though, when you say, like line by line things, because some of the things I found, just for example, like a $26,000 subscription to Newsy LA. That's the paid subscription. I know there's a free subscription. So to me, the $26,000 is a position, right? That's a position.
I don't think it's free year after year. We do have it free right now.
Okay.
I believe, and Shelley's not here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Shelley could
so
tell you. I know
this
it's
year-
free. We're
this year
using it
was
right now.
free,
Are they
Going
looking
to
to?
pay.
and now it's going to
Going to
pay.
pay.
They often do that.
Oh, how lovely of them.
They give you a free, then
Yeah.
you love
Try it, love it.
and then you want it.
Yeah.
So I will double check on that, so I'll
Yeah,
write that down.
so do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
I
we-
love the, the
If
free
it was
version's
free,
been
we would stay
working,
free.
but it's in a tech position instead. So, yeah, so.
But we could give up Newsella for,
For a
if you had us do a priority list,
For a position.
these are the things we look at.
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm writing Newsella down.
Yeah. And that's just one example that kind of came right out at me. Another thing I thought of is, sub pay, increasing it by $5 instead of $10. Would $95 stop someone from subbing on this side of the river versus that side of the river?
We already increased it.
We did, okay.
We've increased, and this is to reflect the increase.
Okay.
This year, we're absorbing the increase.
Okay, so
Next year, we have
continue,
to.
we want to maintain.
No, just to clarify, we
Oh.
did increase and absorb it. This is another increase.
Oh, it
This
is another
And this
increase.
is to
Okay,
make
sorry.
us even with Lewiston.
Okay, so maybe
Okay.
we're not even. Thank you, Adam.
Yep, we're currently $10 behind. This would make us even if they
It'd
don't
make us
go out.
even, but I guess that's where, and listen, I do not want to nickel and dime this right to death, but at the same time, I think, there's $17,000 worth of savings there if we went to a $5 increase versus a $10 increase. $95 versus $100, I don't know that someone would not come to sub our way for something like that. But that's sort of just a few things that I'm thinking about, that as much as I would love to fund new positions, I just don't think it can. I just don't think it can. Yeah. Yeah. And we're juggling the, and the juggling with the 10 per room.
Right there.
Yeah, you
You're
can stay
good.
there. Sorry, Scott.
You can pull his chair up from.
Yeah, just in the doorway.
Let me ask Adam if, no, but save this is good, and send them to me, because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Send me all your ideas.
Sort of have some, line by line, fulfilling, we have unfulfilled positions in the budget now, and that, just the unfulfilled from cost center 1 was like, I think, in here, they may have been fulfilled since this came out, and was handed to us, but there's an extensive amount of money just with unfulfilled positions right now as
In mind,
well.
most of those unfilled are the new positions. They're not
New
current
positions.
positions that are
Oh,
unfilled.
they were new, not current,
Because
unfulfilled.
when we put them in,
Okay,
it's unfilled rather than a name.
okay.
No,
Thank
This
you.
is what we
There
gotta
are a
keep.
few. There are
Yeah.
a few that are
Okay.
currently unfilled.
So how did
In
it
order to
look?
maintain positions, that's really the goal, I think, for me, and I know Dave
hearing
Simpson
you.
were here, he's absolutely sort of said some of that as well.
So where's the 1.6 put us? Did you do the calculating?
So, and I think I need to ask Brian for clarification. If we talk about the 1.6, are we talking about on the local or overall?
I'm just looking at the overall. 'cause I
The
wasn't looking
overall
at that
budget
sheet.
up
I just have to be looking at the tab at the time, and I'm just going back to what the tab was before, because, before it was 9, then it's 10.3, 10.5, but then we dropped down to 6, so the next one up, the ones that we're projecting, is 11.9 or 12. So if we drop it back to 10.5, and again, that's just an end number, that's not
Right, but looking at the overall, was 1.6 million increase to the budget, overall or to local? I know you, which cost are you on,
I'm looking at this.
Okay, yeah, but the other comment you made is city council would accept you doing the 1.6, because that's the existing position's salary, right?
But that's overall, I'm just looking
Right,
at the.
no, that's what Adam wanted
I
to
think
know,
that's,
is,
because that's the number I'm trying to
is
get.
when you said overall,
Total
it is
3
2.9 million, you want that 2.9
Be
million
1.6.
to be 1.6. That's what I'm thinking. I know what
Okay,
you meant
all
by
right.
special ed.
You were looking at that when I was looking at
Yes,
this.
I know what you, yeah. Okay, so you're gonna send us ideas,
Well, we have them, but what we may decide on the outside is an area to cut, you may, right? So we are going to need to compare.
exactly, we'll do ours.
Yeah.
You do yours.
Okay.
And then we come to where we are, in the middle, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to have to.
You have to live with it to adopt it.
Yeah. Yeah. And as much as I would love to say, present this to city council, it's,
But we
yeah,
can
it's
say-
not feasible.
All right, so what do you want to bring to city council?
I think city council on Monday night is what it would take us to maintain. What will it take us to maintain?
Okay, so,
And by that you mean maintain current positions.
Current positions, current salaries.
The special ed cost we currently have is that $900,000.
Yeah, and
Really,
we have to fund that.
That's maintaining.
Yes.
Unless we want to artificially lower it. So it's,
so what I heard Brian say is maybe bring that to 85%.
Yeah, I was thinking 85%. Unfortunately, I think pulling the vans and the van and the buses into CIP, obviously that's going to get down to that 10, 11 mark, which we know is, but at least it's, even if we showed them, here's where we're at 13, now we're down to 11. I mean, again, I think it's showing progress.
Well, it dropped a point with, what was it, 200,000?
Yeah, dropped it a point.
100,000 is a percentage point, yep. And just to give you a sense, if the overall was up that 1.6, that would be a 6.5% local increase.
Down from-
Again, that doesn't account for the special ed increase.
That's about half.
Right, doesn't account for the
Doesn't
special ed.
account for the special ed.
So it would be, what we're seeing to local would be 60 cents.
And I think that, based on talking to Ryan, I think that actually by not funding a couple of those two new positions, the costs actually go up substantially. Because I thought Ryan said we had to, he had a figure, and I don't remember what it was, but it was.
If you don't keep with the autism program, with the ed tech, but that's part of our job, will be to look at what is essential that are in the new positions, and then looking at our current position, what could, like you're gonna do, swap in, swap out, based on, so, I mean, this at least gives a direction that we're shooting to be at the 1.669, but you may see it next Wednesday and go, oh my God, there's no way we can be at the 1.69. We need to be at 1.88, or we need to be at 2. We won't know until you know what is, I mean, that's gonna be a huge undertaking, and you might say, oh my God, if we have to cut 8 positions for that.
Right.
I mean, you guys start doing it, you'll see.
Yep.
How are you gonna get there?
Right.
It's not an easy task to get there. It's hard decisions, so you guys have homework too.
Oh,
You gotta get there. You all have to, okay? And
Yep.
Brian, if you've gotten there, good. So we'll go over, we'll go over it. So does everybody know what they're shooting for? So in order to, we started at 2,969,377, subtracting the 169, how much do we have to cut?
We'd have to cut about 1.3 million if that was our number.
Go. So everyone's looking to cut 1.3 million.
And I always like to point out, and I'm not saying this is not an acceptable increase, but at where we're at with the 13.83%, if somebody in Auburn owns a house that's valued at $150,000, it's a little less than $16 a month at that 13.83. And by no means am I saying that's not a lot of money, because I know people with fixed incomes it is, but I think it's good to put into perspective where we're at and a dollar figure per month.
Right.
And equate that to how many coffees that is a month for people that drink Starbucks. So I just think it's good to put it in lay terms about the monetary increase per month for a $150,000 house.
And what is it if you have a $100,000 house?
Right.
Yeah.
Or a $300,000 house,
Or
it's
$3,000,
$30 a
yeah,
month.
exactly.
Right.
All right, everyone.
Good. Thank you, everyone. This at least, we know we're not we know that this, and
Work to be
I will
done.
communicate, Karen and I will communicate on Monday. Cutting 1.3 is not gonna be easy, and it may not be where we end up. We wanna do what's right by the kids of Auburn.
Brian, what is the, you, Brian?
I know which.
I know you, Brian.
Old Brian, new Brian.
What about the municipal budget? Is that going up? Is that,
To my knowledge,
Good question, Pam.
there's only one group that has said anything about lowering their budget.
and have they talked about how much they are
It was
going?
$11,000. Other things that we have seen have all had increases.
Have had increases?
Increases.
Well, they're coming in with an increase.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything right offhand from who we've seen that have not had increases. Now, granted, some of those are just been salary. A couple of the departments are just giving salary increases.
And what is the city council okaying for the municipal
We've not
budget?
okayed any, we've not actually,
No, but
what
like,
we're hearing now is,
what is the increase, like, like you've said that, the school committee.
That
they
will be
just
after
wanted
ours is
to-
decided.
Huh?
That will be determined after ours is accepted.
but
Yep.
to be honest, at least what I'm looking for, because I can't speak for the council, although I've spoken to a couple of them, is we have to look at what we contractually owe. We have teachers, we have firemen, we have police officers, they're all under contract. We have contractual increases that have to go up. With that, there's retirement increases that go up, healthcare increases that go up. So we understand that that's where we're at, but everything else is up for discussion.
All right, everyone, we'll take a 5-minute adjournment and meet back for a regular meeting. And we will be meeting in the same spots that you are currently located in. We're not moving to the, no, we are not moving to the desks tonight. No. Not tonight. You can rotate chairs, you can change, but your space right now, I think, is sort of your space. So, all right, thank you, everyone. Let's take 5.
Clean your spots, just stay.
Yes, I know.
Faith, I did just want to say that I 100% appreciate what you said about the
everyone, we're back on.
Focus, focus.
Yes, let's focus. All right, let's call this call to order the March 18th, 2020 Auburn School Committee meeting to order. And as soon as we can, join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everyone, as you can see, we are spread out in different spots this evening to try to create some distancing between us, as well as limiting the amount of people who are in the room this evening. So with that in mind, we'll do roll call. Make sure you speak either loudly or have your mic in closer proximity. I'm going to start way over there with you, Dan,
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
and then we'll start here and just whip around.
Brian Carrier, Mayor's Representative.
Pam Hart, Ward 3.
Brian Belknap, Ward 4.
Faith Fontaine at large.
Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
Rose Walker, Ward 1.
Business manager?
Katie Cronin, Superintendent.
And it's Pam Hart, Ward 2.
What did you say?
Done that since the beginning.
You want to be my neighbor, don't you, Pam? Yeah, it's been a long week. All right, everyone. So before we start, I think when we talk about communications as our next item, I think it's really important that we sort of give a big shout out to the entire Auburn School Department, all the teachers, all the staff, all the everyone. Central office, administrators,
Thank you, guys.
our ed techs, our everyone who has just pitched in, everyone who has just really rallied, heard the call, rallied. What we're seeing on social media, what we are getting for emails, what we are getting for phone calls is just absolutely, it just absolutely gives goosebumps. So thank you. I wanted to make sure that we said a really big public thank you. I could go on and on, but for time's sake, we just want to make sure that we know that they're appreciated, thanked, and we may be in this for the long haul. So let's keep this energy going and this community sense of community really going strongly. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. All right. Next item, consent agenda. Can I entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda as well as the meeting minutes from March 4th?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Brian, second from Brian B. Any discussion? All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes. Next item, public participation. Anyone in the hallway like to come in and join us this evening? Thank you. Seeing I'm going to close public participation pretty quickly. I think right now, in light of what we are about to face, I just want to speak to this just really quickly. Public participation can morph and change as far as how you can get a hold of us. Email, phone calls will work. We're trying to limit, obviously, social gatherings, so reach out in different ways. All right. So next, we don't even have printed copies of the agenda tonight, so as to not hold anything. All right, superintendent's report.
Okay, a couple of things to report on. One, we didn't do early release Wednesday review today because teachers really wanted to be here and didn't feel comfortable, and then we got lowered to 10 people anyway, so it wouldn't matter. What I put in front of you are key dates, and we can make sure that these get posted under calendar for now, that this is tentative, but these, we're part of the region, so we do a regional calendar together, and so these dates are pretty solid because we all have them. I know that there are members that want to talk about Wednesday, how many half-day Wednesdays and so forth, so we're going to do that later, hopefully later. We'll have to watch when we can do anything that's going to involve a lot of public. We'll have to watch that. But right now, the first day of school is scheduled for August 26th. You see Thanksgiving break, November 25th to the 29th. December break, December 23rd through January 3rd. February break, 13th to the 21st. April 17th to the 25th. And then last day for students with no snow days would be June 7th, and last day with 8 snow days would be June 17th. So I just want you to have these because that's pretty set. We can't really move right now. We're only allowed to have 5 different days among all of us, and we are there. Matter of fact, we had negotiations happen recently where we all meet to negotiate to make sure we're all at 5. That collectively we're at 5 different. So we'll talk more about that. I know City Council is because of the feedback from election that just happened, I'm hoping that they move out of our schools, the elections. Because my fear is if they don't, and you all have said you might want to have no school, that would be 3 days in the calendar with no school. It would be November, March, and June. So that would be, a matter of fact, I don't know if we could do it with a regional calendar, frankly. So I think we got to keep putting pressure on City Council to do something different.
I think they're here. I think they're hearing
They're
us.
hearing it.
I do. I think they're
I
hearing
think they got
us.
a lot of feedback this last time.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, I do. So this is a discussion then that will come up, the justification for half-day Wednesdays, the amount of half-day Wednesdays, who gets high school, how many half-day Wednesdays versus elementary. And really, I think it's tricky, like we call it half-day Wednesday, but really understanding I think half-day might be switched maybe to early release Wednesdays and, maybe,
I've been calling it early, did I have it on there, early release? I
I'm
did.
not sure.
I have it on here, early release.
Early release, but yeah, just maybe thinking about what that should sound like and look like. So at a point where we can entertain the conversation and have everyone's sort of input in that, then I think that will guide the decisions going forward with the calendar. Okay?
So you're supposed to approve a calendar, but because we won't have the calendar, I thought I'd put these dates out.
Yeah.
And what we can do maybe at our next regular meeting is you can approve at least these dates, but maybe not the calendar and whole concept.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
The other thing is Karen sent me some questions, so I put them in a Google Doc. So I'll go through those as best, the answers to best. So can Katie please reiterate how remote learning plans?
Katie, can I just stop just for a second? So these were not just Karen questions, these were the questions that through the week or through texting or through phone calls or some questions that came up. So instead of bombarding Katie with everything that's going to be going on at central office, this was just an easier way to kind of communicate to her and Adam some questions that have come from the school committee, okay? If I didn't get yours up there, I missed it, I'm so sorry.
You can always ask.
Yeah.
So I appreciate, Karen, you kind of protecting us this week. I really, really greatly appreciate it. So reiterating the state waivers, that teaching staff understand why they're doing it, not that they don't want to, but some are questioning if it's mandatory and or necessary to obtain the state waiver. So I don't know which teaching staff is asking it. I went over all this and you all got what I said on a Monday morning. The waiver is for student days, so I'll go over it again. We're required by law to do 175 student days, and so we have to ask a waiver to not do the 175 days, and they're usually granted when there's an emergency of some sort. Staff have contracts that they're negotiated, they're under contract. That contract, the state is not going to waive contract obligations. So what the governor has done, and listen, this could change in 24 to 48 hours right now.
20 minutes.
In 20 minutes. Because I hear the Commissioner of Education is putting out another notification late tonight, and it could change a lot. So the buildings are open, and I've sent you all this so you can reiterate what you see. The governor is saying buildings are open in the sense that we want continuous learning of some sort. Now, what we're doing is we're not making it mandatory for students. We're highly encouraging students to do the work they're given. They should be getting feedback, they should be engaging that learning, but there's not going to be penalties for it, okay? So if a student who may be in a family situation that there's no way I'm going to get this, I'm doing the best I can even to just, or I'm watching my siblings, right? My mom and dad still have to go to work, but I'm now in charge of, and there's, So But what is outstanding that we're seeing out there is, I heard from one teacher today that they did a Zoom meeting with their kids. Another teacher doing Google Classroom with kids excited to do the work. So we're hoping where it's not as, stressful, we're tuning in, we're checking in, we're giving you feedback that the students will engage in. Today, with pickup, I heard from Andrew Bard, only 25 packets weren't picked up out of their 230. That's awesome. Fairview had almost 98%.
91, yeah, they were-
91% pickup.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So they're texting me with their numbers. What their next step is, they're going to be calling those families that didn't. Do they need us to drop them off? Do they need to make an alternative thing? So this is really two different things. Teacher contracts, student days. Right now, we get a waiver for student days, we don't get a waiver for teacher. Now, if suddenly we go into a state of emergency which shuts down all public buildings, meaning you can't work, period, then we'll be having a whole nother discussion, right?
Plan F, right? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
until we get those directions and we're talking, that's why, okay? So I hope that helped everybody. Can we make it mandatory that buildings have very limited access to essential personnel only? Or if someone needs entrance, they get administrative approval first and by there for a limited time, no congregating, standardized, yeah. So that is what we're pretty much doing. If you got your robocall this afternoon, if the buildings are closed to the public and they need to call, because we are still working, so our administrative assistants may not be in the building, but they're home doing different tasks. One of their tasks is to call parents, checking in on their voicemails. So that's still continuing. Food service is continuing in our buildings from 11 to 1. We have staff that are supporting that, so they're in the buildings. But it's very minimal coming out of today. Today was a big day because learning plans went out, feeding still. So tomorrow I picture more of a ghost town. But we know that there may be a handful of students, teachers coming in. We have one teacher that is doing reading recovery lessons. She'll probably do them from home, but she may come in to get her materials. So what Billy Hunter and Adam, we discussed today, that when kids are due back, there'll be a 48-hour major cleaning done before the students come back. So staff won't be allowed in the building before students get back. But right now, cleaning them and people have to get in. We have workers coming in for different projects. We can't guarantee that no one's in the buildings. There are things going on, which is good because it gives us time to do things that we can't do when the students are there. So we have some vendors are like, I could do this work if you let me get into the building. So what we are committed to do is that before everybody's back in, there will be a clean thing. I mean, we don't know if we're going to be back in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 20, we don't know. So, but I want you to know we're limiting it and we're giving people choice. Like they're working, they need to get in. They have swipes, so it's not open to the general public. They have their key and swipe stuff. That's what's happening. So.
Can you estimate the cost of what it will be to bring the complete service cleaning in for all buildings?
We're not bringing anyone in.
Okay, but for the sanitation of everything, additional man hours or anything like that?
They can do it all in their own hours.
Okay.
Yeah, because what they're doing now is the teachers that aren't coming in, that probably won't come in. And I think when we get closer to coming back, they sometimes they work in teams too, like a smaller school. Okay, I'm done, I'll come over to, the maintenance people jump in. We have contracted services. So I think we're just.
I just didn't know if it was a different procedure because we've been out and there's this virus that's,
Well, first of all, if they haven't been in the room in a while, it lives about 5 days. I
Okay.
think we said 3 to 5, they're thinking.
So
right.
just us being out of the building, it
Yeah.
will die on its own
I think
anyway.
Yeah.
whenever that push happens and we reopen, let's
Right.
say, there may be a little bit of extra time then, but I think that'll be more than evened out by
Oh, yeah.
things that aren't needed while we're closed.
That's an
But if
advantage of-
anything, I don't think it would be a big expense that we'd need to
Okay.
worry too much about.
I think that would be an advantage to keeping people out of the building, definitely. If
Yeah.
the thing lives for 5 days and,
Yeah.
the virus lives for 5 days, and having nobody in there would definitely be, I guess, my concern is just having people congregate having people meet, because I think sometimes, you know, the fact that they've closed restaurants right now, like, people are finally realizing, like, wait a minute, this isn't safe to do this. It's
Right.
not safe to be close to people.
Right.
So that's my concern, is I don't want, oh, you know, like, we're both teachers and be like, hey, what are you doing for lunch? Let's
Right.
have lunch together.
Right.
If we're in the building together, like, that can't happen, you know?
And we've told them not to do that, but I can't control if they're gonna take a walk down the street together. And I know, you know, I'm just saying, yes, we can tell them, we are telling them, like I was today, I said, you guys, remember, you're too close, we need to spread out. They were telling me, you know, we're walking by each other like that, but, there's gonna be less and less.
Yeah.
Once the learning plans went, now it's just the food service and people who are supporting the food service. Other than that, if I pop in to be in my room to grab a few things, or I'm gonna do, that's, believe me, we're hammering home what I get it 100%. And we've told, I told them, you're taking nice pictures, you gotta watch your pictures. I mean, you can't all be grouped around and have a photo, okay?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we all have to be conscientious of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, knock on wood, when I called CDS the other day about, you know, coming in and, you know, workshop day and whatever, and they're like, you don't have a confirmed case yet. You know, you don't have, so you can't put into place things as if they're confirmed cases. You have to monitor yourself. If you're sick, you should not be, you know, that's the number one thing. Don't show up thinking you're being helpful, but you don't feel well.
Right.
That's been the big lecture, is don't come in sick, and when you come in, you practice, you know, you're staying 6 weeks. So we're reiterating that all times. So that one is big, and I reiterated it again when we went around. And other people reiterate, it's not just me.
And unfortunately, this disease is, if you may not even know you're sick.
Exactly.
And that's the scary part, is
No.
like, you don't know, so.
You don't know.
You really just have to social distance.
You have to social distance. And we could have a change by, you know, the governor announcing all public buildings are closed. That's us, so.
Increasing step
Yep.
by step.
Yeah.
Can we ask that administrators not attend to, I had already done that, I was way ahead of you on that one.
Nothing
Student rep-
personal, we just go over our numbers at that point.
Yeah, student
Yeah.
reps, we were already over, they were already on that, we
Yep.
talked. Capital improvement plan, do you want to explain that, Adam, about the
Why don't I
$6,000
hit that
case,
one
right?
when I get to my
Okay, good.
presentation?
What are we doing to get us set up for remote meetings? We should be issued technology from school department. Okay, so that is a good thing for me to know, because Karen and I are going to have to talk. We can do Zoom meetings. So I'll get into this because this is about city council too.
Yep.
So I need you to check, and we could do a test perhaps, if you have technology at home that could get you into a Zoom meeting. If you need a laptop or some sort, you need to let me know, and then yes, we'll get you a laptop. But you want to be checking, can you access Zoom? So it's called, I'll show you it on here.
And Katie,
Yeah,
just for people's information, Zoom works on Mac, Windows, works on iPhones,
Yeah.
it works on your phones.
If you have a web browser, if you have an internet
If you have a web
connection.
browser and internet
Should work.
connection, you can access Zoom.
so what we would be using, and I want to see my Zoom.
What's also nice about it
See,
is
Zoom.us, video communications. So I have an account, we would set the meeting, and right, and then you all would get on, and we would talk to each other via that. Now, what we got for directions right now is you don't need to have public participation unless you're doing a public hearing. So what I talked to Karen about as we came in, and we have to watch what city council does for next week, is we could put out the agenda and then say, if you have any comments or things that you want me to share during public participation or so forth, please contact a school board member, and we'll make sure that gets out there, okay? Rather than trying to monitor Zoom and have, you know, that would be overwhelming, number one, because more people would have access. So the thought is, we would Zoom the meeting on one of these screens. It would be recording for Great Falls TV, so people can watch it while you guys are talking in your spots. And what's nice is we'd be trying it next week with our budget workshop, which you don't have necessarily public participation a lot anyway, and try it out. So that's the thought, is the Zoom meeting. We've been doing a lot with our administrators on it. It works really, really well.
So you would Zoom from home.
Right.
And it's typically an email invitation. Then you click on the email invitation and you're part of the Zoom meeting. So it's really user-friendly. And then all our faces start showing up on a screen who's part of the Zoom meeting.
Is there any way, or, I'm not even sure if this is possible, but to make it a Facebook Live event? Because there's the chat component, where people can ask questions and
Zoom has chat. It's
Okay.
whether you want all those people on.
asking questions or
Right.
not.
I mean, the problem is, think about your agendas. It's not about asking questions. This would be my only fears. You know how we'd be talking about an item and suddenly 20 questions would come
Yeah.
up. It's not,
That would
public
make it a lot.
participation is you are coming to share your thoughts. So we're going to play that out and see how city council runs Monday night's meeting. I think because the public isn't supposed to be in here, right? And then how do you get your public comments? That's what's going to be the challenge. I can show you in Zoom, there is a chat section that somebody could be watching the questions and then turning and asking you questions. So we can try either way.
I don't know, I guess that's a good point, see how city council goes about it.
Yeah, let's see
and
how
what
Mon-
works.
Exactly.
Sorry, not
Yep.
it.
Well, I think too, if
They're
someone
the
sends
first
us-
meeting with it.
sends us the question before, we'll be able to give it more, thought process, and then we can answer it too. That might give us a little more
Well,
time.
they'll have the
to-
agendas. Typically, when something comes up on the agenda, right, we go through the motion, and then I bounce it out for public comment. Seeing none, bring it back to the school committee. So if we have those ahead of time,
Yeah, because public
help.
participation really is any comment not on the agenda.
right.
If there's a particular agenda item, they're probably going to have to watch first, and then they could send you things like, budget. They might say, okay, I heard you talk about this. I wouldn't agree with that, or whatever.
Right.
So this is our formal request then,
Yeah.
Yeah,
folks.
once the agenda goes
So
out.
There's also-
I'm watching, sorry, go ahead,
Also
Brian.
capabilities in Zoom where you can chat as a public group, and you can also send questions to certain people in the chat.
Yeah.
Or in the
Yeah.
Zoom as well. So
Yeah, it's a lot
if
of
somebody was
capabilities in
in,
it.
say, Ward 4, 5, 3,
Exactly.
whatever, somebody could send a message directly to you through Zoom and not send it out in the public chat as well.
Yeah. So I think we have to look at rules on what's public, like you seeing something, should everybody see it? So Peter Robinson and I can look at Zoom and see all those capabilities we may not even know about. So I like that, Brian, thank you. We'll practice some things. Peter and I can do that. And we'll watch, what I'm watching for is how city council does their agenda tomorrow, because they're the first group to do this. And then I told Karen, we can mimic that with our budget workshop. Like, how did they say it? How are they doing it? And see if we can do the same thing. So that it's not, well, why is city council doing this and school committees doing this? Kind of trying to stay as aligned to our decisions around that. So more to come on that. Now, I don't know if you want to talk about, Karen, what the decision was for Monday night.
So Monday night, and I don't know that they came down to some actual numbers, but because of, we were supposed to have a joint council and school committee meeting on Monday night, but because of the 10 or less with gatherings right now, when the mayor and I spoke today, it's sort of like who should be part of that and limiting, the mayor, the superintendent, the chair, and then representation from each. So once that gets ironed out, but we will not be meeting collectively with the city council and the school committee. So more to come a little bit on that as they iron that one out too.
You will be part of the meeting electronically.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Karen will put out which two, I think there'll be two, what we talked about is Karen, Adam, and I, and 2 school board would be 5. Then Peter, the mayor, 2 city council would be 9. And then depending on what he was going to do, would be 10. And so then they have to debate that. So Karen's going to put out to you all, is there 2 people who want to be here live, or do you all want to be out there?
Yeah.
So until we know what they're
I'm not
using-
appointing anyone to something,
Right.
to that type of meeting. This would be voluntary, so like I said, we'll figure that one out. We'll iron that one out. But you can be here in person or Zooming in.
Yeah, I think they're going to do a Zoom meeting as well.
I believe so. I believe so.
So more to come on that. So that's a remote. How are we responding to the new legislation that is expected to be signed by the governor? So just like this is it. One of them is the participation. The other one is, which will be interesting for city council and school committee, is finance and budget. Is they know coming with primaries, are they even going to be allowed to hold school validation, school referendum votes? And so they have right now that your same budget can stay until January 2021. The problem's going to be is our budget cannot hold what we are going to do for next year. It can't. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts. And then when do budgets get approved? How do you get the public hearings? How do you get feedback on your budgets with 10 people in a room? So I think there's going to be more direction on that. And so more to come on that. And then we're going to keep responding to, so what was there a new legislation that you thought are we responding to?
I think that one was mine, just making sure that, like, our thoughts around school budgets, thoughts around public participation, like, that was.
You hit the things I hit? Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is, are we planning out beyond the 2 weeks? Everybody knows that, let's put it this way. We're trying to get through this week, and okay?
Please so.
Right, and
So are families,
they
yeah.
all know that we're probably shutting down longer than that, and it's going to depend what the governor announces and how that might look, to be honest with you. I think it's going to come to, there'll be teachers that keep engaged because they want to, and that's what happens. There's going to be others, students that aren't going to have anything but what their parents are trying to provide using whatever they can. So we're going to jump that bridge when we do. I was talking to Phil and Phil Kroll and Peter Creighton this afternoon about feeding. If all public buildings are closed, we will no longer be doing the feeding. And they said that's when FEMA jumps in. See, FEMA is getting ready right now, to knowing that that's a strong possibility that when public schools close, when public buildings close, they are going to have to start feeding the community. So we're the community response now, and then when it becomes a national emergency to the degree that they're closing all public buildings, that's when other agencies, the state agencies, pick up. So right now we're handling the community emergency, then the state will handle community emergencies. So there'll be more to come, and I anticipate that, maybe as early as next week. That's what Phil was saying, maybe end of next week, that things may shift in its response. But our commitment is making sure our families continue to have their support. The buttons that we've had put on, people have been great putting what they need. Others are committed to assisting. So our administrative assistants working remotely are attaching people to other people, like, oh, we have this family here, would you be willing to connect with them? So that's part of their job as they do remote work, is connecting our families to other families, and people have really appreciated that. And it also gives staff, if somebody says, well, I couldn't afford groceries this week, it's not a staff member feeling the pressure, oh my gosh, do I have, you know what I mean? It can be, well, somebody in the community said they would provide food. Well, let's get that community person with that. Rather than staff feeling a lot of pressure to meet everyone's needs, I've told them, just tell families to sign up on our website. We'll even sign them up. Just call us, and then we'll get the community people so that we don't feel the pressure of all that. What's the plan for getting food to people who cannot access the pickup locations? People are reaching out. So we have people, and this is that thing of, trying to keep everybody safe, but then we need to deliver food. So there are some staff members willing to do that, and they're setting up, they don't, put down the food, walk away, so they're putting all those in places. But parents have been very good. They know their neediest families, so they're personally reaching out to them. Are you okay? Do you need stuff? Sue Davis was working with Good Food Shepherd over at Fairview, getting apples and potatoes and whatever. Other schools are still getting the bags so that on Friday, when they come for pickup, they can get their usual bags, because there's families used to that Friday bag every week. And so we're making sure, we're hoping to maintain that as long as we can, so that they were giving those bags out today to families. And one family said, I don't get the bags, but I really could use the bag, and we gave them the bag. So we're listening, we're watching. You hear of anything, you just let us know.
And I will say that the schools that aren't Title I, the bags I deliver from Pathway every week, we delivered those this week, and those went out too.
Excellent.
So,
Yes, good,
yeah, the families were, and we did hand deliver to some houses, so.
good, thank you.
So with at the bus stops, I guess kind of what does it look like? Because I know people are volunteering. Is there a list, and is there like a schedule, like, I volunteered, I'll do Monday that day, and then that way there's not like 20 people in one time trying to give bags, because I know
Oh, no,
we're
no.
a great community and people really want to
I know,
help, and we want
exactly.
to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just afraid that too many people will be, and then we're gonna like have a bunch of people now, but if this keeps going, we're gonna need to kind of hold on and have a lot of, you know what I mean? Like
Yes,
just-
no, you're thinking.
I don't want
Pam,
to
you're
get
doing
everybody
excellent on your
exhausted.
emergency thinking. So we had an administrative Zoom meeting this afternoon. Chris Piercy, the food manager, said the very same thing. He's like, we need you checking in with the kitchen manager, and we've told the kitchen manager to tell people, I don't need help if I don't need help.
I
But
don't want to exhaust everybody.
right, so what we've done is we have a Google Doc right now, and all the schools are working on, well, they already have, their schedule. Like, the first day of feeding at Washburn, there was maybe 8 people. Today, there were 2 people. So I think as we know how many people are coming,
Right,
we
can
now know how
adjust.
many people we need.
Yeah.
So he asked for a little extra support on Friday because they're giving out 3 meals. They're giving out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so they're going to need more hands kind of organizing that. But we have a list so that Chris, if one site, the kitchen manager is out sick, somebody can go in and learn. He's putting some trainings together, some little trainings that if you end up subbing in for a kitchen manager, these are the things you need to know. If you're subbing in to hand out the food, these are the things you need to know. Because he's really, he's been kept up at night thinking, what if I get sick? What happens if we can't feed the students of Auburn? And so we did put together a list that, some of us are going to have to play multiple hats here, depending on what happens. If we go into a state emergency in all public buildings, we won't have this.
Right.
But we're trying to maintain as best we
So
can.
like the sign up that you had, press
Yeah.
yes. So I signed up and I
Yeah.
wrote my name and all that.
Excellent.
Now, will I be because
Yes.
I also have gotten a message from other people, like, how do I do this? And so I will be contacted by
Yes.
someone and they will tell me where they need me and I will just, okay.
Well,
There
what
was
they're
an-
going to call, this is how I understand, they're going to call you and say, we have a family in the Lake Street area. I think we're going to call the family and say, do you mind if this person wants to support you, is it all right if we give them your information? Then you're going to get the information so that you can go directly to the person. You can call them and say, I heard you need toilet paper. Yes, I do. Okay, where do you live? I'll be bringing it over at this time. So we're going to try to get you to talk to the person rather than us be the middleman. Just kind of say, okay, you said you would do this. Here's the need. Let's match these families up.
Okay, but so now if I'm a person who, do I buy the toilet paper and I bring it to them, or do I get the
You
toilet
got to
from the
figure it
school?
out. You're going to figure out what you're going to do. You're not coming to the schools.
Okay.
You're going to say, okay, I know a friend who has extra rolls of toilet paper. I'm going to go get 3 from them. I'll drop them at your door at 2 o'clock. You'll see them on the stoop.
Okay.
Like I brought toilet paper for somebody that said they didn't have any today. Yeah.
I think that's where you indicated what you would be willing to do. So willing to bring food, willing to, bring toilet
Exactly.
paper, willing to provide, what you were willing to do.
And if you're
I think that's
willing
what
to go
Katie's
to a
talking
feed
about,
site and
matching
help
up.
out, we would call you if we had a need then. I think right now we're good. Like you
Yeah.
said, people get, and then people die out.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
That's
Yep.
what I don't want to
Yep.
happen,
Yeah.
is this goes on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Any more with that?
I just have one other thing.
Sure. No, keep
Go ahead.
asking. Don't worry about it.
I just want to make, I'm considered a bad mom right now because I'm making my kids social distance, and I've had chats with other moms and about what are you doing with your kids, and I've I've told my children, this school is closed for a reason, and the reason is because we need to social distance. It stinks. I can't see my friends, you can't see your friends, you can't see your boyfriend, girlfriend, I get that, and it's hard. I grew up in northern Maine when we had potato harvest, and I couldn't see my boyfriend for 3 weeks because he had to go pick potatoes. I get it. And I didn't have FaceTime, and I didn't have any of that.
It's
you know?
real.
It was a lot harder, but anyhow, but I just really want to like impress that, you know, it's really important that we have closed the schools to maintain social distancing, but we all have a responsibility to tell our kids, even though it's going to be hard and they're going to fight back, and we need to keep them socially distanced. And I think if we're all on the same page as parents to do that, then it gets easier. Because if I say, oh, it's okay, go ahead, and you've told your child, no, you need to social distance, then that's making it harder for that parent. So we really all need to be on board here. There's a real reason why we're social distancing. We have to flatten the curve. We do not want to overwhelm our healthcare system, because if we overwhelm our healthcare system, then we have issues like Italy had, where they have to pick and choose who gets the life-saving equipment. If you know, Brian and I are both sick, and Brian has a better chance of surviving, he's going to get the ventilator. I won't. And we don't want to get to that point in this country. We want to learn from what the other country's done. So we really need to impress on our children that they need to socially distance. It's not because we're being mean. We're doing this, and we're doing this to protect our elders. We're doing this to protect our immunocompromised citizens, and we're doing this, you know, to protect everybody. So I really just want to impress that make sure that kids are continuing to social distance. We didn't close school for everybody to have a vacation.
Yeah. Thank you, Pam. Yep, thank you for that reminder. Let's keep putting it out there.
I do also kind of want to add to what she said, that I notice every time my husband or I drive by, there's a park, like near Office Max.
The gully.
Oh, the
They're
gully.
in the gully.
Yeah, the
They're in
gully,
the gully.
okay.
Those of us
Official
know that as
terms.
the gully.
There is a group of folks, gentlemen, I believe, that are always playing basketball there. So I don't know how that's monitored, if that's suggested by, you know, the public, police officers, or what, like, hey guys, like, I don't know what that sort of, maybe
Well,
legally or responsibly
well-
that looks like, but come on, boys.
We're not at that level of
Okay.
restriction yet.
Okay.
I think, like, Portland went,
Disperse.
right, Portland went to a, you know, curfew and this, and I don't think we're at the police, I haven't heard that.
Okay.
But it doesn't hurt to, you know, say to.
Swing by.
But,
Yeah. Yep.
No, I know, but
We just need to realize there's a reason
Yeah.
we're doing this.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yep.
you know, it's not,
no,
there's a reason
we're
for
not
it.
doing this for vacation, like you said.
All right.
Okay,
It's not a vacation.
no,
I'm
it's
just
not a
gonna-
vacation.
No.
It doesn't feel like a vacation.
Coronacation.
So the next item is,
Just remember your
moving on.
vacation that you just had.
All right, let's refocus. Let's get this meeting going so we can get home.
So we can get home. School nurse practitioner. So we've been having, and I won't say her name correctly, Sashi. Okay, Dr. Sashi Panenzo. Close. I apologize. She's watching because it's me. And so she's been with us for a while, and she is now with, she's doing, I think, her own private practice. So we work with St. Mary's anyways, so sorry, I'm getting mushy. So when we started to do our annual approval, that started like in November, and then Roz was leaving and it got all jumbled. And so we have a great person coming on board that I sent to you, and it's Jonathan
Libby.
Libby, thank you. Jonathan Libby, I've met him, he's you can tell he's a go-getter. On his days off, he's like, I'm gonna go over and see what you guys need, so I'm really excited to have him on board. So you just need to approve him, you saw the contract.
Saw the contract, saw his
Saw
credentials,
his-
saw his transcripts, saw his,
He's my son's doctor.
saw everything. All right, so if we're okay, let's move on to this. A motion to approve the school nurse practitioner contractual agreement? So moved, second by Pam. All those in favor? None opposed? That motion passes. He is on board.
So
Okay.
part of getting a waiver is for you all to approve the superintendent's plan for school closure. So you know what we've been doing, all the things we're doing, that really our major plan is to continuous learning as long as we can. And we're paying all of our employees. We're
Feeding our
yeah,
kiddos.
feeding our kiddos, and, yeah, so that's.
Remote
those are the
learning.
major- Thank you. Those are the
Any
highlights.
any questions or anything you feel we're missing right now at this point?
Thank you again for all of the work that you
Yes.
guys are doing on this. Like, I
Welcome.
can't
Yes.
stress it enough that even my perception of it completely changed and is way more positive about it than I originally anticipated. So I just wanted to say thank you, and everybody is receiving like good feedback from everybody.
All right, so can we have a motion
Thank
to
you.
approve the superintendent's plan for school closure?
moved.
So moved by Rose, second by Pam. All those in favor?
Thank you very much.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, capital improvement plan.
Hey, through the wonders of technology, I'm going to call Billy right now on my cell phone. He's going to join us, because I asked him not to come tonight.
Right.
You would put us over the threshold.
Hi, you're on speakerphone with the school committee.
Hi, we hear you, Billy. Hi.
Says hi. So I've got Billy here in case there's something he can help clarify. So I sent you the list last night, and I guess I'll just quickly go down through it if that's what you'd like me to do, or I can hit highlights. What's your feeling at this point?
I just have a couple questions. One of them was the key swipe.
Yeah.
Where is it? Oh, the rekeying, rekey the schools, and also the key swipe. Where is it?
Yeah, it's about halfway down the page. It says system rekeying, and actually that line was edited today, and that's why it looks different to you.
Oh, okay.
And it now says 25,000.
Oh, yes.
So
Okay,
let me
that's why I
talk
was
about
getting-
that.
Yeah, now, we had okayed $65,000 to rekey and to swipe all the schools. Was that part of that? Is this extra beyond the 65,000?
Yeah, so the 60,000 was to do the work to add the swipes.
Yep.
This is to complete rekeying at those schools, which completes the cycle. So changing the locks so that there's only a few master keys that get into those buildings. So my original thinking was that we would cover this through the next year's budget. I think given how things are looking, it makes sense to put it in the CIP. So that was my thinking on that. Yesterday's number was a number, I had to put something in there. I was waiting to hear back from Billy on that. So Billy and I talked at length today about that, and we feel that 25,000 is a more realistic number on that. So that's what that's about.
And the exterior door for $8,500, what kind of door is that for that much money?
So this is an exterior door at Sherwood Heights with all the framing and little windows and things that go with it. It's starting to rust away.
Door, it's the entire,
Right, it's, it's the things that go with the door. And it is one door. And just so you know, these numbers for things like that door these are budget estimates provided to us by Mel Cole, who is our building consultant. He's an engineer. He provides these project budgets for us when we put our CIP plans together. Obviously, we have not put these projects that we may do in the future out to bid at this point.
yeah, I was
So
gonna say,
that
do
will
we put this
happen
up to-
later. As we get to these projects, we'll follow our purchase policy and either get 3 quotes on things if they're under $30,000 or put them out to formal bid if they're above that. But just based on what I've seen the last 2 years, 8,500 didn't surprise me for that item.
I had a couple of questions as far as the redoing the bus loop at AMS and the bus loop at Walton.
Sure.
Are we redoing what's already there, or are we?
These are new. So let me talk about those. So AMS, they've changed the traffic pattern so that the parents are going around the building. This This would essentially be adding a turnaround to ease that congestion. Hey, Billy, I'm going to let you go because there's a lot of background noise. We'll follow up with you if there's any questions.
You know it pretty well.
Yeah. So,
Bye,
sounded
Billy.
like a good idea.
Okay, bye.
I wasn't quite sure what was going on there. Yep, yep.
So this is essentially to put in a turnaround to ease congestion with that.
Because you
The-
know how tight it is back there?
Yeah.
You go back, it's very, yeah, turn at the end. To open it up to make a turn. It's just, it would make it less
They wouldn't be going
congested.
around the building, they would just be going up and then turning and coming
They
back.
want to design a loop. There's no loop.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the back of the AM&S.
Yeah, see how tight it is?
The back right corner
The
is very
back,
tight.
yeah, the very
Yeah.
back has very small, so they want to open that up,
Right.
not make a
Yeah.
loop inside anywhere else.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll get more info on where Billy's picturing that going, because he has that,
He has a design.
he has a design in his head. And
On a
we got
napkin.
the budget from Mel for that. The Walton, right now the buses go out back, and obviously there's also kids playing out behind the school. So we would like to take that sidewalk that loops in front of the school and expand it and make it a bus loop and keep all that bus traffic out in front of the building and get it out of the play area and the parking lot area. We feel that's a safety thing that we should do, so that's what that is.
And where did this list of capital improvement projects come from? Just through walking around the buildings and creating, sort of
It's a
your,
combination of things that are carried over, which the big example would be the casework at the middle school. This
Yeah.
will be the third time you've seen that on the list.
Yeah.
Because it's such a big amount, it's sort of been pushed back as we needed to do other things. So we're bringing that back to you. The rest of it, yes, exactly what you said. Billy, Mel, and I walking every building, we do it every year, and talking to every principal about what the needs are in their buildings. And that's what we use to update this every year and bring forward the projects that we think we need to do.
So can you explain then, there's a motion presented to us tonight to approve the presented capital improvement plan would hold us to then looking for loans to fund all of these things or put them in, or what can we right now circle, highlight, decide yes, no, in, out? Like, what does the motion hold us to?
So what it does is basically say, so this is us bringing you a list of what we think we need to do over the next 2 years. And these are projects we would look to do with capital improvement borrowing, which we do every year. Every year we go to the city council and present our list. We review it, answer any questions, and they come back and give us a number. And when we have that number, we prioritize what's on the list and decide what we can do.
Okay, so a motion tonight does not say absolutely fund all of these, fund all of
Correct,
these.
because the school committee
gonna
doesn't
get
have
enough
the
funds.
ability to do that.
I would
We
love
won't
to say,
receive
wow, this is
enough,
quite a dollar amount here.
won't
Let's add
receive
this
enough
dollar.
funds next year to do all of these.
Okay,
But what it does is get them on the list, it gets them in front of you and everyone thinking about them and realizing these are needs that need to be addressed at some point.
okay.
And this is a list, when you approve it, that will go to the joint meeting next week.
Right.
Okay.
So the city's going to share, city manager's going to share his list, we're going to share our list. It doesn't hold you to say these will actually be done. It's
Right.
more about if we get $1 million, and what we usually do is prioritize safety first. So we get a certain dollars, we say, okay, which one of these identified are safety, and which ones are, so we go through. That's why the casework always kind of gets pushed off, because we only get a certain amount of money and the safety ones go first.
Right.
So it just,
Okay.
it makes you acknowledge that these are the things that need to be done.
And keep in mind, the highlighted in yellow are the buses and the van. Those would come off the top. So if we get $1 million like we did this year,
Those will go first.
those would come off. We'd have 800,000 to work with on everything else. Sure.
East Auburn,
Tennis court or the entrance canopy?
no, I'm thinking of the basketball
The tennis
court
court?
expansion
Yeah.
and the tennis court work. And it's simply because I can't, in all honesty, I can't remember. I remember the baseball.
They're right. It's like more in the woods there. You know where the turnaround is?
Right.
It's, yeah,
Are they separate or are they together?
The basketball court and the tennis courts, they are totally separate. So the basketball court is on one end of the building, and she needs more space for the kids to play there. So she's looking to extend the pavement out into the grass. The tennis courts, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I have an update on that number. The tennis courts are out in the back. They're not playable. They're not usable. We would like to restore them to use. And I talked to Mark Goslin at the city today, and he confirmed that he would like to bring this forward as a shared project. So that would put our number at 60,000 and the city's number at 60,000.
I was gonna ask you, like, is it the kids that are using the tennis court, or is it adults that are using the tennis
But
court?
right now, no one's using the tennis
But
courts.
if we had tennis courts, who would be using the tennis courts?
So it would be both. It would be, I think our tennis program could use them for practice, especially in the next 3 years when they won't have tennis courts. But then the hope would be moving forward, it would be the public. The courts were initially funded with some federal money. We need to get them back online. And so it's something we need to address. And we've discussed it with the city. They see a benefit for their recreation programs, having those online. And so that's why we're sort of bringing it forward together. So that number, when I adjust this for Monday night, will be 60,000 and not 120,000.
Okay, all right.
No, go right ahead.
Nope, that's why it's here.
System, outer door secure entrance, hard and exterior doors.
Yes, thank you.
Which door are we talking about?
So, talking with our safety consultant about current best practices and in looking at what will be happening at the new high school and what's about to happen at the middle school, is you've got the outer set of doors, and then you've got what they're calling the vestibule, and then an inner set of doors. And most of our schools have this set up now, but typically the outer doors have been unlocked, and it's that inner set that's locked. And what this would do is set us up so that both sets of doors were locked, have an intercom or a way for the secretary to interface with the person before they're even in the vestibule. And then once it's, okay, I think it's okay for them to come in, now they come in and we figure out exactly why they're there. It adds to the overall security, and it buys time for that secretary or that person on the other side to assess and react if there's a threat. So this is the best practice. All new schools are going to this. So we feel that it's something we should start doing. The 75,000 is a guesstimate, but it would be to do all of the schools outside of the high school and the middle school. Because the new high school will have this, and the middle school, we're doing it this summer. So we're looking to do all the others, and we talked about maybe starting with Washburn, because they have a really good setup that could be quickly converted to this if you think about what it looks like when you walk in there. So this is something that we may not be able to do them all at once, or we may. We probably put it out to bid for the whole thing, but that's what we're looking to do there.
And will we eventually, the schools that don't have the vestibule, will we eventually look into?
Yeah, the ones that don't, we'd have to look at that.
Right,
Like,
'cause-
you know, would we do something at Franklin? Would we do something at RTC? We'd have to address that, because obviously there would be more cost to that.
Right,
This is
okay.
looking to turn the ones that we already have
The
into
current
the
ones.
secure system that we need, with swipes, with wiring, with two-way communication at the entrances.
Any other questions? All right, and at this time, can I entertain a motion to approve the presented capital improvement plan?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? None opposed, motion passes.
you.
Welcome, audit report.
This was part of, you had the joint meeting with city council, and we didn't have a meeting to approve it after, so you're just approving what you heard. It's just you acknowledging, yes, we approve what we heard, basically. We're accepting the report.
And this was, let's just go back just so we can remember, this is when we had the gentleman come, sat in workshop, heard the audit report, and now it need a motion to approve. So, we have a motion to approve the FY19 audit report. By Brian, second by Faith. I'll take yours as a second.
Sure.
All those in favor? None opposed, that motion passes. Finance Committee.
Well, other than the bills, we had considered coming forward to you tonight with the, we had a meeting today with the architects. I'm probably jumping forward a little bit, but, and we did make a determination that we'll share with everybody so that we can start moving forward on that. There's real concern in being able to get the project started so that there'll be time to finish them in a regular school year. Coming forward, that may change at any given day, but we've made a decision with that, and so we're going to bring that to you, brought to you, and I've already told you. You can share that as you need to.
And I'll be letting the candidates know tomorrow, so they don't know yet, but we'll be doing that tomorrow, letting the architect, letting them know which one we'll be working with, and then we can get started on the middle school project.
One of the big considerations with that, of course, is the speed with which they would be able to start on the project, and a lot of questions that were asked, and came away with a good feeling about it. So that's basically it.
I think we talked about it last meeting because we were reviewing the January.
Yeah.
No change since what I told you about special ed and offsetting savings. No change to that.
Questions? We entertain a motion to approve the finance report for February 2020 as presented.
Second.
Second by Brian. All those in favor? None opposed? Motion passes. Subcommittee reports. I think right now,
We did have a policy meeting, did you?
no,
We have not had.
I don't believe they did. Kind of go, we just heard from finance, policy's not had a meeting. Brian gave us the city council update. We have a meeting coming up with the curriculum subcommittee. Learning Center, Dave's not here. New EL has not met since the last time. DEI.
So Laura, Dave and I and Virginia met, and we decided to put the next couple meetings, just the four of us.
Yep.
So that we can set kind of the scaffolding so that we can have an equitable process of getting a DEI committee. But right now with the whole COVID-19, I know Laura is involved in helping other schools kind of with this challenge. So right now we're kind of on hold until we kind of can meet again and really discuss how we're going to go forward. And we've sent a letter to all the people that had been coming to the meetings as well.
A quick question in regards
Yes.
to that. I don't know if the other councilman, Holly, was on got with you about that survey. There's a survey that's done every 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
That's done every 2 years, and it's broken out by county, and it deals with a lot of subjects that are in here. And if the committee would be interested, we could have them also take a look at that. It's just more information. Gives you an idea about how that we compare against the county with any information that we garner during this process. And I can send you the
Yep, I was going to say connect with Pam and Dave on that one. Absolutely, absolutely. Superintendent search, we are at right now. Applications have been received. You should have received an email this afternoon about how to coming in, get access to the applicants, and to now begin the process of going against the rubric. I'll make sure that if you don't have it, directions are on there as well. So that's where we're at right now. As far as the upcoming, you're supposed to have a 4 o'clock meeting on Monday for more training around the interview committee. That one I will speak with Eileen King tomorrow, and we're going to figure out what that's going to look like, because obviously we cannot meet that many people in one room, so what that will look like. So more to come on that one. Can you scroll down, Katie? Nope, the other way, sorry, the other side of the, I think we're good on everything else. Parent advisory, there's nothing going on those. I would,
You'll hear more as the joint meeting agenda comes out tomorrow. You'll get a picture of what we'll be doing on Monday, and we'll try to mirror that for the budget meeting workshop on the 25th.
okay. All right. Come to think, can I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved.
By Pam, second.
Second.
By Brian, all those in favor? Motion passes. Meeting adjourned, 8:15. Thank you, everyone.